Welcome to Screen Quest, a podcast where a fellowship of film lovers and armchair movie experts plays film roulette. I am one of your hosts, Chris Waterman from Jacksonville, Florida, joined by my lovely co-host, May Finch, also from Jacksonville, Florida.
Hey, everyone.
And we have Will Rotondi back from a nice, well-deserved bit of R&R in Utah. And he's,
Hey,
of
what's
course,
going
from
on?
Greenville, South Carolina. Sorry. I know it made it sound like you were from Utah. So
Nice.
sorry.
Originally from, currently in. No, you're all good, buddy. It is all good. And yeah, it was very nice. Thank you.
We've decided you're moving there, Will. Sorry.
Yep. Eventually. Yep.
How was your trip, and give us a highlight? Like, what was your favorite thing you did while you were on vacation?
The trip was great. It was really laid back. My wife and I really didn't have a lot of big plans. We had a mutual friend that was meeting us out there who wanted to do all of the national parks in like 8 different Airbnbs in 10 days. And she was just gung ho about it, man. It was awesome. We were definitely not that far over on the meter of wanting to do everything, but we did do a lot of sightseeing in like Salt Lake City. We went up to Park City, which is just a little bit farther north up the hill, or I should say mountain. And that was really cool too. And checked out a little bit of like the state parks that are there, and especially like the architecture in downtown. The views, I would have to say, are pretty much, that's the highlight. I mean, between that and just some nice R&R back at the resort in the hot tub, those were probably the 2 big things for me. Silly as that may sound, but it was just really relaxing, and it was nice to just get out of town and go see a part of the country that I haven't before, and just relax in nature for a weekend. It was great.
Oh, that sounds nice. Yeah, I've done vacations both ways. I don't mind agenda packed vacation, but even then I try to build in like a couple of free days to like recharge a little bit, take some of that pressure off. We have we're being forced into a cruise by Royal Caribbean because long ago, like pre-pandemic, I booked a cruise to hang out with my sister and nephews. It's going to be like a last hurrah. And then the pandemic happened, they graduated, and they kind of started the process of growing up and being out of the house. And I had cruise credit that they wouldn't convert to cash for me. So they're like, you now have to take this cruise that you originally only did because you wanted to hang out with your family. So we're going to make the most of it. It's first world problems to complain about having to take a cruise. I've never done one before. So I think it's more the principle of I would probably have rather like gone and done something else. But all that being said, I'm looking forward to just like laying around on our asses, drinking fruity drinks, and like, maybe do a little bit of snorkeling and kayaking and stuff in the Caribbean. So
Heck yeah, man.
I'm gonna say that sounds kind of ideal in terms of not having to be action packed, because you can't leave the boat generally.
yeah, because of the implications. No, for my Sunny fans out there. I think it's like 3 out of the 7 nights are like, or days, are cruising days. So you're exactly right. Like, it'll be very much like pool time. It's a massive boat, so looks like there's like an escape room and like musicals, and this is all very strange and new to me, so I don't really know how to feel about it, but I'm going to make the most out of it. So well, cool. I thought it'd be nice to do a little catch up and talk a little bit about what we've been watching, what we've been up to, instead of having like a opening segment. So I will start with what I've been watching, because man, like, I don't know, like, I've been on a tear the last like a couple of weeks with just all kinds of stuff. It's weird. You would think like doing a podcast like where we watch a specific movie would like turn me off. It's like dialed me up to like 11, and like my desire to want to watch stuff.
That's saying a lot, because you already watch a ton.
Yeah, I do. Like, yeah, I do. I'm definitely a movie guy. I'll just pick one, and it's a movie I watched yesterday, which was In the Mood for Love, Wong Kar-wai. Like, I've heard of both that movie and director for the longest time. I've not seen anything that he's done, and it was just phenomenal. Like, I was just blown away by how beautiful it was, and it had this sort of like, nostalgic sadness to it. Like, it's set in the 60s in Hong Kong, and it's about a man and a woman who find out that their spouses are both having an affair with the other person's spouse, and like they're trying to figure out how to grapple with that. And like it is just lovely and sad and beautiful and meditative. And I was blown away by it. I can see why it's considered like one of the greatest films of post 2000, and certainly like a major landmark in like Asian cinema. So that's the choice that I'll pick for a movie that really gravitated towards. Other than that, like I'll rattle off a couple more. We'll talk like Doctor Strange I saw and thought was good. Watched a Friday the 13th movie because I got to on Friday the 13th. And I rewatched Heat, which is like one of my all-time favorite.
Oh,
like,
classic
crime thrillers. Just love it. So good.
Yeah.
How about you guys?
Well, as my co-hosts know, I had some minor brain trauma recently, so I've definitely been gravitating towards easy watching
Smart.
over
Yeah.
anything like very, heady and cinematic. Pro tip, listeners, do not multitask when you're walking down staircases. It's never worth it. But yeah, so I've been watching like a lot of animated shows mostly. Laid Back Camp is an anime I just started, so I can't necessarily wholeheartedly recommend it. But if you like camping and really cozy animes, it's about like this high school camping club with these girls that have no idea how to camp except for one of them, and they're all trying to learn together, and it's very fun and silly and makes me wish I was out in the mountains. So yeah.
Came this close to camping this weekend, and we decided against it, but that like sounds pretty a cozy anime and camping. That's a great sounding combination. One more time, what's it called?
Laid Back Camp.
Okay,
it's on
perfect.
Crunchyroll and all the usual anime
Nice.
spots. Besides that, I did start the second season of Russian Doll because I liked the first season a lot. It was very impactful to me. I haven't loved the second season so far, but I will stick with it because I love Natasha Lyonne. So we'll see how it goes.
That first season was so much fun. Like, and it came at the perfect time. We had just moved back to Jacksonville and didn't really have a social circle, and we were like, it was like this weird little treat at the end of the night. Like after we unpacked like a couple of boxes each, we'd go sit and watch like an episode or two of that. Like it's weird how sometimes you relate like shows and movies to like a very specific time and experience, and that's what that is for me. It's like moving into a new house and kind of like being in between like places and jobs and things. So how about you, Will? I know you were just on a trip, but squeeze in any new films or any TV?
Definitely. So guilty pleasure wise for TV, my wife and I have been watching that new Halo show on Paramount
How
Plus.
is it? How is
All
it?
right, so this is complete. All right, so I have two takes on this. First is that if you want a TV show that's just fun to make fun of, but like still be interested to see how it's gonna go, that for me is Halo. It is so. On the one hand, I thought when like the first episode dropped, I thought, oh, this is going to be interesting. Okay, because I have like no concept of the story of Halo besides like keywords like Cortana and Covenant and Master Chief. That's like the extent of my knowledge. So, and I played like a little bit of the most recent one. So any gamers that are listening, I apologize. Like, do not trust my vote on this for anything. But it was just really entertaining.
Like somebody like you though is like who they want to bring into the fold, right? So
yeah.
That's why I want to hear your take. It's like if you're like a little to like casual knowledge of like perfect. So so it's fun to make fun of. Like I want you to expound on that.
Okay.
And you're a sci-fi fan. I want to hear like what you think of it as like kind of a standalone sci-fi thing. Like,
so for me, what I enjoyed about it was the fact that I guess I like TV shows where you have a protagonist who you try and make them have a confrontation with either people that are on their own team or that, there's some sort of like government power play thing where you're just like, oh man, is he going to beat the crap out of these other people that were just working with him? Or because there's a little bit, that's sort of like the big cliffhanger at the end of the first episode is like, these other Spartans that are working with him going to like open up a big can of whoop ass on all these other little Marines that are next to him that are all trying to capture Master Chief. And I'm thinking, is this going to happen? And that to me, I like stuff like that. Then it just sort of goes a little off the rails as the season progresses, which I sort of kind of anticipated, but it was still, I don't know, it's still fun for me. Like it's a popcorn flick or TV show to watch where I didn't take it too seriously to start with. So I find it's easy to forgive for some of the ridiculous stuff that happens along the way. Um, I will say though, my one complaint is like, man, Master Chief needs to keep his helmet on. Like, I don't understand why he took it off at one point, and then it was just like, I'm never putting that back on again. And I'm like, you're in like around a combat zone. There's no reason why you would take your helmet off. No reason. I know who you are. Everybody knows who you are. You do not need to identify any sort of emotion going on right now. But it is what it is for that. That was like literally my only complaint about it. I couldn't get over that.
I heard he took
but I
something
did.
else out in the most recent episode too. Is that true?
Oh, that. Yeah, I was about to say. So I saw an article about it that made me that I laughed about, which was that I guess the tagline was to the effect of Master Chief lost his virginity and audiences are mixed. I just thought that was hilarious because yeah, when my wife and I watched it and we were both like, oh shit, this is about to happen. And then my wife was like, is this the first time he's ever been laid before? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the first time for both of these characters. And I thought, ooh, that's awkward. And Cortana's like, you know, in like part of like his consciousness, so it's like she's kind of off to the side watching, and my wife was like, this is just really weird. And I'm like, yeah,
Kinky. All right.
yeah, I could kind of roll with it, but yeah, that's kind of weird. So
It reminds me of the Blade Runner 2049.
yeah,
The threesome
man.
that's not really a threesome. Like
Yeah.
yeah. That's a weird bit.
So I would definitely recommend, if you want, like, I think you should check it out because Chris, I'm telling you, man, from you playing Halo, I think that you would appreciate like this, like the attention to detail to make it look like Halo, but also your criticism to see what you would think about it too.
Yeah, I wanted to wait for all of it to like. I am like at some point, I'm sure, like gonna watch it, but yeah, I wanted to wait for all of it to come out because like I've found that generally speaking, like I like to like I'm not a binger, but I do like to sometimes be able to do like back to back or like, you know, kind of like throttle up or throttle down depending on how I'm feeling. So if it's not all out, like I typically will wait. Although like there's exceptions like Better Call Saul, we've been having to watch week to week because I'm so petrified about spoilers and stuff. So
yeah. But yeah, that was good. There's been a few other films too, like just to name drop a couple. The Gentleman, the Guy Ritchie film that came out in like 2019. I finally watched that. That's great. If you like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, it's like same sort of vibes. But yeah, that and Death on the Nile, that Poirot remake they just came out with, that was it was okay. But yeah, so we've had a little bit of time in between traveling, but that's mostly it.
cool, man. Awesome. I'm glad you squeezed in some good TVs and movies. Like, well, let's go ahead and draw a quick side quest. And on today's episode, we will be talking about Metropolis as our main quest. So just a little reminder there. But first, here is our side quest. Shuffle, 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 and see what we get. Ooh, it is Great Expectations. That is our side quest. So because it is a new card, I will quickly read the description of this for our audience members. So choose a film you were excited to see, but were ultimately let down by. And this is a little important distinction from Throw Your Popcorn, because I think like there's a bit of a difference in like where you're like wanting to throw your popcorn and you know you get frustrated versus like something you were let down by. So I like the distinction there because we've all been there. You see the trailers, you're hyped for months, sometimes years, and then you show up on opening day and it doesn't work out. So do either of you have anything that springs to mind for this?
I do.
Take it away,
I was
Will.
gonna say we can debate both if you want to. Prometheus for me was definitely a letdown in terms of like continuing on the Alien franchise back when it came out, and I forget what year it was, but what, 10 years ago now, maybe
Yeah,
more.
I feel like that was like 09, 2010, something like that.
Yeah, that to me was just a letdown, but I think it was because of what I expected to see out of it, and also because I found all the characters very frustrating. And I kind of wanted, but then I don't know, it's weird. I go back and forth on how I feel about Prometheus, because I think what I don't like about it are just reasons that it's intentionally the way that it is. Like typically see inept crew members in like a horror sci-fi space movie. And then you've got, you know, the antagonist, which is whatever the creature is for the film. And it doesn't have to be exactly the same thing as what you had before, because if it's like a repeat of before, like we see a lot in movies now where they just, you know, rinse and repeat the same formula, then that's also tiresome. So I don't know, it's weird to think back and understand what it was that I really didn't like about it at the time versus how I can sort of tolerate it now. But I just remember going in and feeling like I really wanted another like alien versus marine movie, and that was not what I mean, that was obviously not what I was gonna get, but I think that that was sort of in my mind. I'm just like, I kind of want to have that feeling again, and I don't know how that would have ever translated without it being that. So
It's weird because that's a movie I had the same, maybe not as harsh of a reaction, but I certainly was like, "Ugh, I wanted to love
mhm,
this and I don't love it
yeah.
when it came out. And my affection's kind of grown for that movie like over time. I think I've really grown to appreciate the what direction he ultimately went, and sort of realizing how that stuff all works, the biology behind it. There was a really cool chart that came out like, I don't know, a year or so after that movie release that showed how the mixture of DNA got you to like each of the creatures that kind of pop up, and then what
Mhm,
ultimately gives us the xenomorph. The character wise, I agree. Like, I think there's some disappointing characters, but I gotta say, David the android, played by Michael Fassbender, is one of the most deliciously like evil and sympathetic also like villains to ever come up. He is a
mhm,
great example of a android that's sort of marginalized that you feel bad for, and then like he kind of reacts to it in a way, especially like in that second film, where you're like, oh, okay, like I felt bad for you at first, but you're kind of overcorrecting here a little bit, buddy. Like, um, so, but I think that's a fair example. A lot to live up to, and they were specifically trying to draw those parallels between the original Alien and that, and I think they
mhm.
kind of teed themselves up a little bit for some negative backlash. Like, that's a pretty tall order if you're going to compare yourself to like the original Alien
Yeah,
and bring Ridley back after all that time.
yeah.
Have you warmed on it at all, like over the?
I yeah, I think I'm a little bit more appreciative of it now than I was before. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's hard. I think when you get a lot of, it's like when you watch a movie trailer and you get really hyped for something because you have this expectation or this vision in your mind about what you think it's going to be, and then if it doesn't meet that expectation, then you sort of feel a little, I don't know, not completely disappointed, but I think that that was sort of it. It was, I was so hyped on what I knew from before that I just sort of expected a little bit too much for what it wanted to be. So I appreciate it more now, having like come off of that high and that expectation.
Sometimes our expectations can get in the way of like enjoying a movie, which is
Hmm.
often why I will see a film twice. Like, if it's something that I was very excited for, if I have
Yeah.
a bit of a muted response like on the first go, I'll give myself like a week, and then uh, come at it from a place of, all right, now I know what it is. Let me evaluate it on its own merits versus what I thought it should be or could be. Yeah, interesting.
It's especially
Have you?
difficult with like any large franchise that's, had a
Mm,
bunch of installments, right? Because like I was racking my brain for examples, and all I could think of was like other big franchises like Star Wars or Star Trek, right?
mm,
Um, and I think it's just because, yeah, it becomes such an iconic kind of pop culture thing, and it feels like you have to have like either the same things that became popular in the first couple of movies or something that is a reflection of those like elements in every single installment. And then that kind of, it's really hard to balance that with also being new and refreshing. So
mhm.
yeah, I haven't seen any of the Aliens movies, but I can definitely see how no matter who you are, you would probably be a little bit let down by how they, did that installment.
I feel like
Yeah,
your
that's
example of Star Wars is definitely appropriate because that was always sort of how I felt when the prequels came out. And even then when they did, when Disney bought them out too. So I feel like it was sort of like you just can't win at that point. Everybody wants something that's just not, it's not the same, and it won't be the same. So,
it's all that baggage, right? Like, there's
mhm,
expectations to live up to, or like how do you walk that line of like nostalgia and originality? And that's why like I know I am in mixed company, but the Last Jedi was a movie that I often describe as like one of my favorite Star Wars movies, and specifically because it gave me what I didn't know that I wanted, which was like was
Mm,
awesome. Like when a movie can like delight you, surprise you, and make you take a step back and go, wow, like this is not at all what I thought like in a million years was going to happen in this movie, but I love it. Like that's a really great feel. That's kind of like the opposite feeling, you know. And that didn't work for a lot of people, and I appreciate that too. You know, sometimes like people want the familiarity. It's no secret that like, you know, if either of you in college read excerpts of the whole thing of the hero with a thousand faces, like it's no you know, secret that that story template has been kind of used over and over again, where you have the orphan, you have the mentor, you've got the object of power or some sort of symbolic thing, and then sort of the hero's journey follows a lot of the same beats. Like we do like the story, the same story, kind of, you know, as a collective audience. Like it's familiar, and that kind of brings a comfort with it. But
yeah.
I love that example. That's a great one. Well, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, man.
Hopefully by the end of this, you'll have seen at least one Alien film. I know is on our list. I won't say which, but there is at least one. And today's main feature, our main quest, you might say, is 1927 Metropolis, which was Will's selection. I'm glad that we had some extra time to watch this movie. I had never seen the complete Metropolis, so this was
Mm,
very exciting. But Will, I'm going to let you take the steering wheel here and lead us through the discussion. Take it away.
sounds good. Thanks, man. So, yep, like Chris was saying, Metropolis was made back in 1927. It's a classic German dystopian sci-fi silent film. That is a lot of adjectives to throw out there at once. But it was directed by Fritz Lang and was adapted into a novel at the same time by his wife, Tia von Harbo. I'm going to go through some of the members of the cast here, but beforehand, just to any German speakers who may be listening, entschuldigen Sie bitte that I may mispronounce some of these, so I apologize in advance. But the film stars Gustav Frohlich as Freder Fredersen, who is the son of Jo Fredersen, who pretty much runs Metropolis. He's the big in charge of all the business operations, city management, all that, who is played by Alfred Abel. We've got Brigitte Helm, who plays Maria, who is sort of a religious leader, possible prophets, sort of the pious mother symbolism that's going on in the film, as well as the love interest for Freder. We've also got Rudolf Klein-Ruge, who plays Rotwang, who is the evil mad scientist, who is one of the antagonists of the film. And then we've got Theodor Loos, who is Josephat, who is like, I would say, Jo Fredersen's second in command for like a hot 10 minutes in the film before things get a little dicey for him. The film itself is arguably the grandparent of what we would all consider to be the template for dystopian sci-fi. You've got humanity living in this big mega city with the rich who are all living above ground and pretty well off, partying all the time, while everybody who's in the working class is poor, shuffling around, doing 10-hour shifts of labor, just trying to keep all the machines running. With most dystopian futures, there's obviously going to be an uprising, like we can all kind of anticipate that. And unsurprisingly, it's thanks to some rich white dude's kid who sees an OSHA violation and goes straight to his dad to complain about it. And yes, I am talking about Freder and Yo. There's a workers' revolt. There's some child abuse. There's massive property damage. There's a mad scientist, Rotwang. The religious leader, Maria. Her robot doppelganger, which is going to be really fun to talk about, and the quote unquote sexy dancing that she does in the film, and a pretty questionable come to Jesus moment that we see at the very end between the workers and the upper class management, culminating in a tagline that we hear on, and well, I shouldn't say here, but we read about 2 or 3 times throughout the film, which is that the mediator of the head and the hands must be the heart. That's the message that we're supposed to pull from this film. In other words, the mediator, or I guess the connection, the glue that's going to hold the relationship between the upper class, the thinkers, and the people who make all these plans for the future of humanity. Connecting them with the lower class, the people that do the work to create those things, has to be the heart, has to be, emotion. And so, yeah, that's pretty much in a nutshell what Metropolis was and still is. And I would argue still holds up very well to this day and is in some ways very prescient of the society that we still live in. But I digress with some of that. Before we kind of dig into some of the questions that I've got about the film, I'd like to turn to both of you to get your initial impressions overall, having gone back and either watching this film for the first time or watching the complete, or as complete as we'll ever get, version of Metropolis. And so, Chris, how about you go ahead and start us off on your impressions on that?
Sure. Yeah, I love this film. It's a very special, has a special place in my heart. I saw it the first time in university at Clemson, and our teacher professor was kind enough to actually turn on a commentary track that was just lovely. It gave sort of everything from like identifying the leitmotifs, like the music that was used, and like how people would have easily interpreted it, like that were familiar with the silent films of the time, to pointing out sometimes a little heavy handedly like the symbolism and things like that, like the Tower of Babel sequence and stuff. But no, I love this movie. It was great to rewatch it. It's been probably 15 years or so since I last saw it, and I've not seen the complete version, so it was kind of nice to get actual sequences that were missing, that were kind of filled in with like intertitle cards before in the other versions that I had seen. But I think this movie is a lot of fun. It is, I would agree with you, like very impressive for its time, and I think it does hold up largely. Like a lot of the themes and even special effects I found to be like, wow, like I can't believe even like like in like the 50s, like some of this would have looked good, like 1950s, like let alone like 1920s, with no sound or anything. So yeah, it's one of my all-time favorites. One of those things that like I cite as like, yeah, like everyone should at least once, like if you're into sci-fi, like see this to kind of understand where like modern sci-fi kind of sprung forth, like in terms of like the cinema. Yeah. That's
Definitely.
me. That's my
Oh
take.
man, yeah, it's a gorgeous film. May, how about you?
Yeah, so this was my first time seeing it, was watching it for this podcast, but I kind of became aware of the film's existence actually through Janelle Monáe. She has an
Mm.
album titled Metropolis, and has just like a ton of themes of kind of like transhumanism and African futurism, and kind of playing with how we relate to androids. And like in a lot of music videos, she is playing an alter ego that is an android.
Mm.
Love her. Anyway, and that's kind of when I first became aware that this existed, but I had not really seen any images from it besides the one that is in Will's background until I actually, sat down to watch the film here. And I was pleasantly surprised because, like, I've seen a few silent films, and generally, like, they've been, in my opinion, kind of outdated and kitschy, and this really held up in comparison to those. The score was fantastic. I'm a classical musician, so I was geeking out the whole time. Um, and the I think the only thing that took me out of it was just the makeup work.
Oh man, Freder has got it caked on like no one's business. He is that dude is so white.
It's almost
And
like
I
funeral makeup at times. Like I felt like, like when I'm like
Mhm.
somebody that's like at a wake, like in a casket, like
Yeah, and like obviously like the science and chemistry behind makeup was like not as good as it is now back in the 1920s, but it was a lot. And I also enjoyed the fact that I could tell robot Maria from real Maria just based on who had makeup on, or more
It's
makeup, I
true.
should say.
the squint too. There was like a trademark kind of like hunched over like
Yeah.
squint like that she does, but
Anyway, so yeah, I enjoyed it a lot, and it's brought extra context to one of my favorite musical artists. So
amazing.
Excellent. I also happened to notice that you were gesturing towards your board as well. Do you have a question or a true or false, perhaps, or a fact about this movie that you'd like to share?
I do. So I apologize if you're going to talk about this, but it's I feel like a fairly like widely known piece of trivia about the film is that it flopped when it came out. It had a huge budget, like the biggest budget of any film yet made, and did terribly at box offices. Like the German audience did not like it. They had to cut it apart into a bunch of different pieces to like even show it to the US audience.
Mhm.
And I was wondering if you had like kind of like a sense of what the budget actually was. So my question is, in like equivalent today's USD, like as of 2022, with all our lovely inflation, do you think that the budget was equivalent to 19 million USD? And if so, true or false, but also if false, I want you to tell me if you think it's higher or lower.
Mm.
So that number is adjusted for inflation.
Yes.
I'm gonna say false is higher.
Okay. Well,
I'm tempted to say false as well, that it would be higher. But yeah, I think I vaguely remember reading about what the cost was, and it completely fell out the back of my brain. So yeah, I'm in the dark on that one too. I'm riding on Chris's coattails on this one.
so funny enough, it actually was just 19 million,
Oh, wow.
because while that was a lot more money than you'd ever spend on a film back in the 1920s, especially with all the special effects work,
Mm.
it's nothing compared to the giant blockbusters we have today, especially like Marvel movies and things like that. So
I
just
was gonna say that's like an actor's salary or like
yeah.
a catering budget now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whew. Good Lord. That's awesome. I mean, yeah, just goes to show like what you can do with models and the amazing lighting techniques.
And culturally, just how much more we're willing to spend on movies these days.
So true. Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate the feedback on that, and I learned something new. I'm terrible when it comes to budgets and anything. So any all this stuff I do find fascinating, because it's incredible to me just how much or how little money is spent. Like Troll 2, for instance, and that. So I always appreciate that feedback. So thank you, man.
You're welcome.
Well, diving a little bit more into some of the questions that I've got, and we can definitely talk about other stuff too as it relates or not to these, but I thought that sort of in the spirit of the overall message of the film, I've broken down a few questions just based on I guess, the head, the heart, and the hands. And so to start off with, and this kind of dovetails a little bit into what we were just talking about with special effects, is what do you think about the special effects for this film, for this time period, or anything in particular that you found especially marvelous about it, or maybe even not now compared to what we see in current cinema?
Yeah, the art design for me is like where I think this movie excels. Like just the overall aesthetic and sort of I don't know, the consistency of how things look, everything from like the architecture to like the robot. Um, Obviously very influential. Like I think I read that C3PO was like partially based on the design of like the robot in this. Like I think like yeah, like it's yes, very clearly like special effects that are not of our time, but I think if you had showed somebody this, they would have probably guessed closer to like the 50s or 60s, which is says a lot. So I think they're great.
Yeah, I would call it genre defining, right?
Yeah.
And like the design of the city is really cool. I also love that the like a lot of it has carried through to current sci-fi, but I think one thing that hasn't is like the prevalence and use of like clocks and clock like kind of engineering.
Mm.
Um, like a lot of what the machinists do is literally just moving clock hands around,
Oh, the
essentially.
shittiest mini game of all time. Like making the
Yeah.
hands match the light bulbs. Oh, I was like, this is terrible.
But like I choose to see that as more like metaphorical than literal in the film. But yeah, so like I thought that kind of stood out as like an interesting artifact of the time. And I feel like everything else is extremely forward thinking and visionary. It's just that kind of is like, okay, yeah, that kind of dates it a little bit more towards like the early 20th century.
Yeah, you
waiting
got
for that
closed
to come
circuit
out. And
TVs, right?
yeah, that's
And
true. Yeah.
video phones. Like I was like, holy shit, I forgot about this.
Yeah, that was
Like,
amazing. Yeah,
you got
that
Microsoft
Predator
Teams
uses.
there. And,
Awesome. No, it's valid, man. I was thinking about that too. I was thinking about just like the city itself and how it's constructed, and like when you see the traffic patterns and people moving on all those bridges. I thought that was really beautiful. Even the planes, I mean, or the just all the details of what's moving around in the models or in the lighting effects to make it look like people are actually in this really big set when they're not. So that's really cool. Or even thinking about like the influence on the sci-fi that we watch now, like all the little references here and there in films back to some of either not necessarily the techniques, but like the little nods back to Metropolis. Like I can remember watching this the first time and thinking that when they created the evil Maria, the doppelganger, in Rotvong's lab, that it looked very much like I mean, in one hand, it's like the Frankenstein monster in the way that it's created, but also it's very much like watching The Fifth Element for me. I thought this looks
yes,
exactly like when they create Lulu's character, and she's
thank you.
got the band strapped across her in the same way that Maria's doppelganger, or Maria, the original Maria, is in a tube and covered up. I guess not necessarily modestly, but sort of modestly for that film. And so it was interesting seeing that and then watching sort of that creation scene as well. So yeah, no,
Another
that's great.
like small part of that scene that I thought was interesting was like the rings of light that kind of like pulse up and down as she's
Yes.
like transforming. Cause like I feel like beyond just kind of like how we depict like body transformation scenes, like the idea of like moving rings of light and something magical and sci-fi happening has like been a very long-standing trope since then. And it's pretty cool. But
Transporters.
I was gonna say Star Trek is a big example.
That is awesome. Yes. After talking about the special effects, what do you guys think about, or I guess, how do you feel, I should say, what do you make about the ending of the movie? Do you think that this is something where there is resolution as we're led to sort of believe with the message behind the film, or do you think this is just sort of putting a band-aid on the problem and it's going to turn into the same issue the next week?
This feels very to me like indicative of like the times like this movie came out. Resolutions in film were quite swift. Like you needed like a decent climax, but like that there was almost no denouement. It was basically like the big thing happens and then it's wrapped up in about 2 minutes or less. So I read this as kind of like audiences would have been familiar and probably forgiven this. It does feel quite abrupt, like a nice neat little package, but again I chalk that up more to the times than anything else.
Are you saying you don't believe that all labor issues can be solved by just introducing an HR department?
No, it's a start. It's a start.
That's basically what he is. He's just the HR person.
That's a great point. Yeah, OSHA mixed with HR. No, I do like, in the fairness of like the film too, like I do get the impression this is meant to be like the start of something very symbolic, sort of the putting the hands together and all that stuff, and the bridge, like that bridge imagery. I love it. Yeah, it feels a little neat and tidy, but I'm willing to forgive it for that because I recognize kind of what it is, which is like it's symbolic, right? The sentiment is decent, I suppose, as a start anyway.
Yeah, it does. I don't know how to feel about it because there is so much biblical imagery going on and very kind of I guess Dantean with all like the sins and the way like all the references to the Tower of Babel and things like that happening here. And so for like the resolution to be something that's much less black and white, that does leave me feeling like a little uncertain and like a little shaky. I do think it's kind of like a start of a resolution. It's like we'll work on these things. And yeah, it's so interesting for that to be the resolution of a film that has like, I don't know if maybe it wasn't as radical at the time, but like a gigantic like labor revolution destroying an entire city. Like that's
Mhm.
a huge event, and for the resolution to be a handshake feels, yeah, flimsy for sure. So yeah, I don't know what the goal was with making that the resolution, if it was just kind of like to make everything feel a bit more comfortable after all of the chaos or what. But yeah, I want to hear your thoughts, Will.
It did seem a very like very sudden because we have a lot of moving parts, right, throughout the film between Freder trying to empathize with the workers, and then you've got his love interest with Maria, and then you've got Yo and Rotvang who are sort of trying to manipulate everybody so that the status quo is kept. But Rotvang also has like this like vendetta against Yo because they both love the same woman. And so Rotvang is initially creating this robot as like a reincarnation or something, some sort of fake version of the woman who he loved that Yo was married to. And then that turns into like his inspiration to use her as like the evil Maria instead to then sow chaos. So he's basically the Joker character of this entire story. And then it's just like suddenly everything just kind of like loses their shit because you've got the workers' revolution, which then everybody seems to forget they have children. They all revolt, go upstairs, destroy all the machines, cause massive flooding, remember that they all have children, start losing their minds that they think they've killed their children, and then they want to point fingers at Maria, who they think was the one who inspired them to revolt, and go and burn her like a witch, and then suddenly realize that's a robot, and they're okay now because this got resolved, and the evil scientist guy, whoever this guy is we watched this die over here, spoiler alert, sorry, Rodong does not turn out okay, but it's it's just like there's a lot to unpack about the emotions and the like all the chaos that ensues in this story. So I can understand, like, for back in the day, how watching that sort of societal collapse would also be sort of, well, in a lot of ways it was politicized when it came out. And so I can understand, like, I mean, we think about the politics now and what we're all afraid of, or not necessarily, depending on who you like, where you feel about the political landscape these days. There's a lot of concern about what you see, whether it's in the news or whether it's depicted in film, that can kind of stir your emotions about it. And so back then, I could definitely understand if this was like a big concern or a turnoff, depending on who you were and who was watching. And so it's interesting that on the one hand, it's nice that they try to have, an ending where everybody, for the most part, the people that you care about are going to be okay, or you'd like to think that they're going to be okay. But it does seem to very quickly try to tidy up all these loose ends that, if we're, in a realistic setting, would just be like the initial step. Like, there's so much work to go into that. And then the question is always, is this just going to continue to happen, or will you have a resolution or not? And so I think that you're right. It is very kind of rushed, but for the sake of the film and sort of the symbolism behind it, and the fact that it's already been 2.5 hours, that I, it's sort of like, yeah, we need to cut it. So, it is very, it's interesting, but yeah, it's problematic. It's not very
So
nice.
Frederick, what a little, like, not quite plagiarist, but man, he jumps in and steals the credit, doesn't he? It's like, this has been Maria's thing. This is
It's
like
true.
all her idea. He's just like, he's
Yep.
willing to be the bridge. I'm like, what about this is all her idea.
I
Sure.
don't want to like derail Will, but we will talk about the gender politics, right? Because there's a lot.
That's the next question. Actually, the next question is sort of, we'll start with that because I'd like to talk about Maria a lot, in terms of just hers, like Chris is talking about. So the fact that she's basically here helping these people cope with this, these bad conditions, and being like the religious, optimistic voice of reason, and cares about all the kids, and then she turns around and gets, basically her image is besmirched by this evil doppelganger. And Freder just hops right in, and he's like, yes, I love Maria, and also I will be your mediator. And he's doing this all while getting a shit ton of cardio in, because that man is running everywhere. But like, yeah. So tell me, you. I know I've been talking your ears off about it. So tell me a little bit more about what you think about the symbolism behind Maria. You know, the dichotomy of the two characters, the good and the bad, the gender politics, and just sort of where we feel like that relates to, I guess, society today.
I I mean, I found it refreshing in the sense that like there is definitely a strict divide like class-wise between what an upper class woman is kind of expected to do or be and what a lower class woman is. And I feel like this film like showed women working and being part of like the kind of like underground class. But then there are also women in like this kind of eternal Garden of Eden area who are there just to be pretty and entertain the wealthy sons of the men in charge, basically. And like how different those two roles are, but they're both in service of this patriarchal society, right? But then you also have these female entertainers, and there's definitely a kind of like Madonna whore or virgin whore dichotomy going on here with Maria, where when she is this very like Mother Mary, Mother Maria figure in the underground, trying to kind of like organize all these workers, improve their conditions. She is dressed very modestly, physically, and even has like a physical divide between her and the workers with this area that she's kind of preaching from. Like there's these low walls in front of her. Whereas when she transitions into her evil doppelganger, the evil is shown by her being this kind of like mother of sins and going and doing the allegedly sexy dance at the nightclub and being heavily made up suddenly. And it's like not only is she trying to lead the workers to ruin at that point, or her doppelganger is, but now she's suddenly a sexual being, and that just like are seen as going kind of hand in hand. And I guess a question I still have is like maybe somewhat more implicitly than the nightclub dancers, the women in the Eternal Gardens are also very much sexualized, but seem to be seen as good and kind of like women of paradise. So yeah, I wasn't quite sure what was going on with that difference there. If it was more that like Maria was, instead of acting kind of like shy and coy like the women in the garden do, you know, she was actively kind of luring men in and making them fight each other to the death.
Yeah.
Things like that. If that was the difference they're trying to draw, I don't know. It was very interesting. And like, I guess I can't fault it too much because it does feel very much just like this is trying to reflect the society of the time, which sadly was less explicitly very much that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's certainly like it's odd. I feel like there's always been a bit of a distance with that aspect of like outside of the sort of the obvious like, you know, angel and devil on the shoulder kind of thing of like of the society, because Maria kind of you know, both as like the robot and like the real Maria kind of, you know, that is the function of that character. Outside of that, some of the other stuff is a bit like lost on me, and I think it's just a little bit of time at distance and maybe some cultural nuances that I'm probably not picking up on. But yeah, like I mean I love that character. I think it is really interesting that like everything like from her posture to like facial expressions like does a great job. Sort of you can tell as the audience member which one is which. You know, even if there's not like a card telling you specifically, or like if you're kind of following the plot along, you could just see a random still be like, yep, that's robot Maria, and that's good Maria. What I kind of wish that they had spent a little bit more time on it, like you know, would have been interesting as sort of the mistrust of machines after something like that happens. Like you would think like, and maybe that's just more of like a postmodern look at like sci-fi, but like, you know, knowing that a machine can infiltrate like the ranks and sort of do this kind of thing like would be scary as shit to me. Like as a random person in this society, I'd be like, oh my god, like one of these things was able to go in and do all of this basically, and like not that like the society is absolved of guilt. Like I think like there's a lot of interesting things said about mob mentality, and
Yes.
which is very very kind of like bone chilling when you think about what happens in Germany about 6 years later,
And
and
who
beyond.
actually loved this film, much to the creator's disappointment.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah, Hitler. Yeah.
So yeah, but like I enjoy the character of Maria, and I do think there's like some interesting things being said. I was very much like, what the fuck, like why is she not the one that like clearly like I remember the first time I saw it, and even this time I'm like, this is such bullshit that she's not the she's the one, she's the heart, like she's clearly been working towards this. And yeah, I get that like Freder loves her, but come on dude, like way to swoop in and take all the credit for something that like literally like you got the hots for this woman like a day ago, and now you're gonna come in here and take all the credit. It feels a little bit shitty to me like every time I watch it, but especially because he is the rich son of the guy that runs the city. It's like, you telling me there's not going to be a little bias there? And again, like, is the society going to accept this? Like, oh, sure, the heir to the evil empire, sure, that's a good mediator. Like, come on. But yeah, that's my take, I suppose.
We're under new management now, so things are going to change, right? Sure. Yeah, heard that line. Yeah, no, that's a valid point. I think that it is interesting to see just sort of the direction they wanted to take with that. I wonder if much is different in the book, or if the book adaptation that was written by the director's wife, I wonder if that's any different in what's explained. I think there might be a little bit more from what I was reading about. There might be a little bit more in terms of like the occult and sort of the religious symbolism behind the film. But that's something that's definitely on my book list of things to check out. I'd like to see if there's much deviation in it, or if it's sort of like the 2001 A Space Odyssey route, where it just sort of fleshes out a little bit more of the background or the storyline than we necessarily got because it was a silent film. But
I will say a thing with like the kind of ending dynamic between Freder and Maria that I like, in the sense that like I find Maria to be a very realistic and refreshing character, at least for the time period, because for all the problematic ways her doppelganger is like, portrayed, I think she sees like very realistically that she as a woman, and also as someone who's part of this underclass, will never have the respect to be taken seriously as a mediator, right? But someone that they've brought down from the upper class, who has all these social and family connections, and has kind of like forged an alliance with, like through marriage, ostensibly. I'm assuming that that's how that relationship would end in, right? Like that's really the only way I think she could see to get a mediator kind of put in place, right?
It's a good point. Yeah.
And it's like, to me, I think it's more palatable that she is actively asking him to be a mediator than him just swooping in and being like, "Oh, I'll do this," like without her asking, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know. I like Maria a lot, but that's just me.
Yeah, maybe they need like a little 2-person council or something. You know what I mean? Like
that would be pretty cool. It would be interesting to see what they would have wanted to do after, if they had ever had a sequel to it. But I will say that. Oh, go ahead. What's up?
I was just gonna say, I'm wondering if that was originally the filmmaker's intention, and then because it flopped, it just never happened. Do you know?
That is a good. I will definitely have to take a look, because that would be interesting to see if they had made more, if they had a better, I guess, reception to the film, and if they had the budget to do another one, and if history had gone a little bit differently, then, as Chris mentioned, just a few years later, if we would have had that.
Yeah.
Hey, low budget. That's what
I'm surprised this hasn't been remade. Like it feels like the kind of thing that somebody would have by now, right? Like done a proper. I know there was like they rescored it and some other things have happened, but like, I could see there very much being like a modern interpretation of this. It's got to be in the public domain by now, right?
Yeah, I would say so. And also, it's interesting that you say this, Chris, because Apple TV, also iPhone, nice little plug in there, is doing a Metropolis reboot or remake.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my, I had no idea. I legit was just like,
I know, and so I will
that's so
share it with
funny.
you guys in the chat or whatever. But yeah, it's yeah, and it as of this year they announced it. I think they're filming in
Wow.
Australia. So yeah,
We
like
should do a group
really
watch
weird
for that.
timing. I
Absolutely.
know. Oh man, I'm totally down. I think, and I agree with you guys. Like, I feel like you could definitely have either a modern interpretation, or you can just continue it off for like you could tell more with the story, or you can go back and remake it, and so yeah, absolutely. Although
Metropolis 2049.
yeah. But please, man, if you're gonna get a sexy Maria, like at least burlesque dancing or something besides like whatever it was that we saw that was on display that I'm sorry, but just shaking your hips, I do not understand how that was enough to make all those guys go crazy and start stabbing and shooting each other. Like,
Don't kink shame. Don't kink shame.
I know,
You don't know.
they had burlesque dancers back then. Come on, you could get somebody who could like
Yeah.
but yeah, so the dancing is, to anyone who has not seen Metropolis, please watch it just for Maria's dancing.
Oh, there's a
It
clip going
is,
in. Don't worry about that.
it's yeah, it is something. It's great. I mean, I rag on it, but it is definitely one of the better moments of the film just to talk about, because it is so interesting, and visually too, not just her funky dancing, but like the symbolism that is done around her and as the scene changes and all of that. So it is definitely a treat. So well, excellent.
Yeah, she kind of
Maybe
Homer Simpsons her way back into the curtains too after like all the violence starts, doesn't she? She's gonna like it's like whoop, like backs off, like which is smart, because like once the bloodlust is up, you don't want to be caught in all the melee. So yeah. Sorry, what were you saying, Will?
No, I think my only other thought was it was interesting seeing like Eva Maria and how like confident she was in everything that she did to just like to sow all this distrust. And then I always felt it was unfortunate that like the good Maria was she was always very positive and proactive and had this good heart. And then whenever she was running away from Rotvang, it was always so dramatic. Like she's stuck in the catacomb, or she keeps getting lost in the catacombs trying to escape from him, and he just keeps following her with this spotlight, and she gets captured somehow. And I know it's for the sake of the cinema and the just the lighting and everything, but I think that to me I found was sort of distracting. I'm like, no, Maria, you've lived down here for so long, come on, you should know this. Like, don't let this creepy old dude who's shuffling around track you down. But oh well, plot, right?
Indeed.
I guess this is more a question than a thought, and unfortunately it's on a dark subject. But I did notice that like the doors, like Rotwing's doors, did have like these inverted stars on them, and that was very reminiscent of things that we saw during the Holocaust. And I wasn't sure if you knew if he was supposed to be like if that was kind of an anti-Semitic portrayal, or if I was trying to read up on this, and I think the stars were more supposed to be like Masonic kind of imagery. But given that Hitler loved this film, I do wonder if there is some tie-in or inspiration there.
Yeah, I took it as like they were like trying. I mean, this is just purely guesswork, but like it was almost like an occult, like a symbol of like they were trying to tie that character to like more like unnatural or questionable kind of things, but I have no idea. It's my answer, really.
Anyway,
I'm sort of along the same way as you, Chris. I think that it's just because it's inverted, it's supposed to mean that it's sort of the darker arts going on. But that is a good question, and I can't speak to that for certainty either.
Yeah, more just a sad observation.
Yeah, it's no surprise that the Nazis wanted Fritz Lang to be in the propaganda department. Like clearly, like he was somebody that could use powerful imagery to tell a story and kind of draw like probably strong connections between things. And it's a good thing that he decided to flee, come to the States. Oddly enough, he made some film noir movies, like kind of to take it back to one of our recent podcasts, that are actually not half bad. The Woman in the Window is really good, which like you think of like some of the, and then M is one I always recommend. It's not really film noir, but it's Peter Lorre is a child molester murderer who whistles in the Hall of the Mountain King when he's like stalking his victims, and it is
Ugh.
terrifying. It's made at 30s. It's so it's tame, but terrifying, and that is a powerful movie. But so if you want something else by Fritz Lang, I can't recommend any more sci-fi, but those are both two good movies that are both have sound, so a bit more modern than this one, but worth a watch nonetheless.
Wow. Yeah, I will definitely have to add that to the list, man. Thank you.
Oh, M is just spectacular. He's so creepy and just like amazing in that. It's like it's a movie give you goosebumps, even though it's made a long time ago. Very effective. Well, I'm very curious about this game. So
Me
what do
too.
you got? What do you got for us, man?
So I've compiled a list of about 10 little video or audio clips from various films, and I wanted to see if I could test your knowledge, if you could guess what they are. If you don't get it from the audio that's with it, then I can fill in by kind of doing sort of the same thing with the other games where I'll mention a name of a character, or maybe not necessarily a character name, but like an actor that's in the scene, and see if that kind of helps. And then maybe fill in with a plot point or something if we still can't get to that. So it's in the beta version. It has no name for the game. It is simply just for fun. So folks, here we go. This is going to be our first try at this game, perhaps tentatively called Just for Fun. And we are going to see how this goes. So this is the first clip. Most of these clips are probably going to be anywhere from, I would say, as short as 10 seconds to maybe about 30 seconds, depending. So, but here we go.
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yep, you got it.
That was actually the framed.
I knew it was Harrison Ford.
Oh yeah. Awesome. Yeah, one of my favorites. All right, here is number 2.
I know you can be overwhelmed and you can be underwhelmed, but can you ever just be whelmed? I think you can in Europe.
Legally Blonde?
No, but good guess.
Is that Clueless?
Also a good guess, and you're in the ballpark of this style of film.
I know, like I thought May had it there for sure. It's like
Pitch Perfect?
No.
Bring It On.
Oh, close. And there is a connection there because both that movie and this one have, or the scene from this one has Gabrielle Union in it. Although she's not in the scene, this movie also had Julia Stiles and Heath Ledger.
Oh, 10 Things I Hate About You?
Yes, you are correct. All right.
I'll admit I've not seen that entire movie. I've only seen clips, which I know is a shame. I've heard it's really good.
Man.
Well, you still got it, so.
All right, so Chris is on the board with 2, but there is still plenty of time, May, for you to catch up and whoop his ass. So here we go for number 3.
Hello, Charlie. Dr. Bruner. Hello, Raymond. Did you feel a little more relaxed in your favorite Kmart clothes?
Tell him, Ray. Kmart sucks.
I see.
Rain Man.
You are got it.
It's like Kmart, Kmart. And then when he said Kmart sucks, it was like, yeah.
I haven't seen it.
You know what? Don't feel bad because I'll admit too, I've actually not seen Rain Man all the way through, I don't think. Or if I have, it's been a long time. So that may be one to add to the list because it's really good from everything I've heard. / maybe seen parts of.
I agree. Yeah, it's good.
So here is number 3. Or, I'm sorry, I apologize. Math is not working. Number 4.
About me, what do? I do I just stand here like an object?
No. You do an eclectic celebration of the dance. You do Fosse, Fosse, Fosse. You do Martha Graham, Martha Graham, Martha Graham.
Dead Poets Society?
Twyla or.
So you are correct in the actor that's connected to the 2.
Damn it.
But that is not it. I'll continue letting it go though.
Michael Kidd, Michael Kidd, Michael Kidd, Michael Kidd, or Madonna, Madonna, Madonna.
But you put it all inside. All right.
Oh, The Birdcage.
Yes. Oh, you got it, man. Nice.
You
Was
picked
that
like the
Nathan
one
Lane at the
Robin
very end?
Williams movie I haven't seen.
Oh no,
man.
man. All right,
It's
yo.
been a long time since I've seen like a long time.
Well, all right. May, you still got time. You can still come back and kick Chris's butt because we still have about, let's see, we're on number 5 right now. So, all right.
Too many guys think I'm a concept, or I complete them, or I'm gonna make them alive. I'm just a fucked up girl who's looking for my own peace of mind. Don't assign me yours.
I remember that speech really well.
Oh, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yep.
I couldn't hear it.
Oh no.
For some reason, the levels on some of the clips you play are way lower. I don't know why.
That is not good. Well, then this is good that we're doing this as a test. So maybe we. All right. So this is number 6. And I'm going to just tweak the volume a little bit. Hopefully this will be okay. And here we go.
I didn't want to have anything to do with it, but he said if I didn't pose for those patty cake pictures, Roger would never work in this town again.
Oh, Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yes, you got it.
Beat me to the buzzer.
So close. All right, number 7.
My son. My dad. Is there anything at all I can do? Is there anything you want to do? I don't know. There is this one thing. A quick little walk. Totally against the rules, of course, but if we don't change a thing, if we're very careful, it shouldn't do any harm.
All right. Any thoughts as to what that
Time
hopefully that you can
Traveler's
hear?
Wife?
Ooh, that is a good guess. It is not correct, but I feel like you are in the right vein.
I have a guess, but I don't. It's a
Look at all
big
the-
fish.
No.
There's like a group of movies that I all get their titles confused. I know it's in this group of movies.
You're doing better than me because I have no idea.
I think I know the movie. I'm just trying to remember which one.
No idea.
So you're listening to Bill Nighy.
Yeah,
Hmm.
this is the one I think.
The science guy.
Yeah, nice. Bill. And then we've got Donald Gleason.
Love him, but
He's playing his song.
yeah.
And there is time travel involved, if that helps.
Nope.
Rachel McAdams.
I know this movie and I can't remember the time. I could have sworn it was Time Traveler's Wife.
I'm just gonna throw out About Time.
You got it.
Is that, oh shit! I was
on.
like, I don't know anything about that like movie. I just was like, that title was nagging. I don't even know the first thing about that movie at all. So that was a shot in the
Definitely
dark.
check it out. You should
Yep,
check
this
it
is
out. It's
exactly the
good.
one I had in my head.
Oh man.
Sorry. That was a Hail Mary, I promise.
All right.
All right.
At
So
least I knew
got-
which one it was, even if I didn't know the title.
Yep. It's all good. So we might have a little bit more than 10. I apologize. I've got 3 more left. So
That's
We
fine.
are-
I might actually get one.
it's all right. Keep on playing. We will play until you get one, May.
This
We'll
feels
play
like
until you
gambling.
get one. House always wins. No. All right. So here we go. Now this one, I feel like if you know it, you'll know it, and if you don't, then you probably just haven't seen it, because I feel like this is and I'm not trying to like say that if you don't get it that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that I feel like this is sort of like this is emblematic of this film so much. So I'm gonna quit trying and I'm gonna quit working it up so much, and I'll go ahead and just play the clip.
My sister Veronica and I had this double act, and my husband Charlie traveled around with us. Now, for the last number in our act, we did these 20 acrobatic tricks in a row. 1,
Chicago.
3.
Yep.
There.
You got it, sir. Ding, ding, ding.
I'm so bad with like musical titles sometimes because I see few of them, but the ones that I do see like tend to be weird, like that one. And sometimes it takes me a second to like, what soundtrack is this from?
Mhm.
Have you seen Chicago before, May?
I've seen clips.
I think like that's another movie you would really like.
Yeah. All right. Hit me, Will.
All right. Yep. Everything on black. We're doing it. All right.
Captain Miller, the bioscan just went off the scale. It looks like the core is draining power from the rest of the ship.
Get the files. Vacate. I want off this ship.
You can't leave. She won't let you.
You just get.
All right.
I recognize one of those voices, but I don't know the movie, so.
So we've got Lawrence Fishburne. We've got Sam Neill.
That's who I
Dude man
recognize.
from Jurassic Park. Science fiction.
I got that.
Yep. Does kind of relate to a phenomenon that was recently posted about in the news about an image from the center of our galaxy.
Oh, Event Horizon? Never seen it. Never seen it.
Oh man, that's actually, I think you would appreciate, Chris. All right, the final one. Here we go. Wait, hold on. Apologies, 1 second. Yep, okay.
Otherwise, shoot this motherfucker and let us take our fraternity of assassins to heights reserved only for the gods of men.
I recognize the voice, but haven't a clue. Can you play it again? Do you mind?
I don't mind at all. Give it 1 second. What happened?
Otherwise, shoot this motherfucker and let us take our fraternity of assassins to heights reserved only for the gods of men.
I don't know it. I'm just trying to figure it out on context.
It's all right.
Mission Impossible.
I mean, that would have been a pretty dope Mission Impossible if I heard Morgan Freeman straight up say, shoot this motherfucker. Ethan, shoot this mother,fucker and let's end this mission. Yep. Yeah. Would have made that 10 times better in my book. Next one, the next one they do when Tom Cruise goes to space, have Morgan Freeman come with him. So that was also, besides Morgan Freeman and his beautiful iconic voice, this film also had Angelina Jolie and James McAvoy. Had to deal with assassins.
I'll give May a clue, but I'm never going to think of the name of it. It's the Curving Bullets, right?
Yep.
I have no idea. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to think of the title.
That doesn't help me.
It didn't help me either. Like, I never saw it, so and that's as far as I can
threw it up here mostly because it is a really terrible movie. I shouldn't say it's really terrible. We've seen terrible movies before. It's not a great movie. It's a popcorn flick that you may or may not get into. But it is definitely it's definitely just for fun, and it's so over the top. So if you haven't seen it, I don't blame you.
Can you tell me the year it came out? Is that a hint you can give?
Yeah, let me check real quick.
Feels like it was college for us, I want to say, right?
I feel like it was 2008. Let me check. Yeah, that feels about right. Yep. 2008, bringing it back.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
You know, that's not a bad. I mean, I give you credit because that's definitely a good suggestion.
I'm done.
I am ready to cash in my chips. That
Gonna
was
cut my
the
losses.
so this film did not go over very well either. It currently with a 71%. Well, it's 71% on Rotten Tomatoes, so that's, I guess, better than some of the stuff we've seen.
Wanted.
But
That's what it's called. Wanted.
yeah, but you got it. It's Wanted.
Oh, clean sweep. I don't know why it just popped into my brain.
Yep.
Oh my god.
Yep. So
I'm resisting
guys,
the urge to cuss you out right now, Chris.
I'm sorry. Listen.
Hey, you know what? You can do it and we can bleep it. So we do have post-production capabilities here.
Yeah.
God damn it.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna not say it if it pops in my brain. But I didn't see it, and like nothing about the marketing or like really the execution of that movie stuck. So it took me about 2 minutes to come up with a title. Jesus.
It's all good, man. Well, guys, thank you both for playing with me. Hopefully you don't hate the judge too much for the film selection, but this was, again, the beta test of just for fun. Thank you guys so much for playing our game. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Chris to wrap it up and pull our next card for the next film. Yeah,
thanks, man. Putting that together. That's fun. I think we should definitely stick it in the rotation because that'd be a fun game to like make. Like I could see like it'd be fun to design that for sure. Right. Well, let's see. So far, no repeats, I think, in either of these decks. So I'm very excited to see what we get for our main quest. And so I'm going to draw a card, and it is a repeat category. Let me zoom in because this is versus mode and it is extremely difficult to see. So our versus mode, which it's to remind those of you who don't know or have forgotten, is basically going to be two films going head to head, and we are going to declare a definitive winner. Ooh, and this is a Chris selection. Your two films are No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood. Probably the hardest like Oscar card I've ever had to fill out, like on who I thought deserved to win like in each of the categories, because they were like both pretty much all in the same categories for acting and directing and everything. Two of my favorite movies ever. This is going to be a tough one for me to even call. So that's our next two. Anything anybody wants to plug before we skedaddle?
If you're not following our Twitter, you should.
And
search for Screen Quest and we're right there.
Yeah, I think it's Screen Quest Pod at Screen Quest Pod. Yeah. Definitely give us
awkward plug of everything.
Listen, we've been off for a couple of weeks. Like it's to be expected. We're only human beings here. Yes, at Screen Quest Pod, you can find us, and please do give us a like and a share. The share part really important. Word of mouth really helps the show like this grow as it's kind of just getting started. So we would appreciate that. Engage with us on social media, please, by all means. Reach out. We do film polls on Friday. Those have been a lot of fun. Thank you, May, for putting those together week to week. And until next week's episode, we love you. Bye.
Bye, guys.